these issues at the UC level.
Great. So yeah, what we're going to try to do now, I think that stimulated a lot of ideas, or hopefully that stimulated some ideas and questions from the audience. And I'm going to have Sophia, my beautiful assistant, come with some candy and wake you guys all up. So take some candy to the children. But any questions that we have right now? Anything that you've heard that has struck a chord?
I don't need a mic. Dr. Magana, you mentioned that we've got these programs in high school, then we have programs in medical school, but they're not connected. So any observations about how we more systematically and intentionally link up these programs, not only for those of us who are trying to support them, but also people who are trying to access them? Because my sense is that if you're in Oakland, or you're in those schools, you get your mentorship program.
Absolutely.
And maybe you get into Prime at some point. But the connectivity between these pipeline programs, I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah. Did you all hear that? Just in terms of connectivity across the pipeline programs, and there's been a lot of discussion in the coalitions and pipeline programs about specifically how to do that. Because once again, it seems we're all working in parallel and very siloed, and one young person completes one element and then gets stuck in that transition. So there's been everything from a discussion to something very clearly articulated, agreements that for young people who are identified as graduates of high school pipeline programs, that there is, that the admissions committees at the higher level really give them preferential consideration, in the sense that these young people have been trained both in terms of soft skills and professional skills and academic that warrant some specific consideration. And we had that somewhat with UC Berkeley several years ago, where there was an admissions counselor there who worked very closely with us and was very clear about the kind of work that we were doing in terms of preparing them for up the pipeline. And while she couldn't specifically say we pulled them out of the pile, there was certainly a way to say, please give us some notification that this young person has benefited from a pipeline program. But it's articulation also, of course, across programs as well. So not just in terms of post-secondary educational pieces, but there are internship programs like Health Career Connection and so forth that will provide that kind of ongoing professional development internships at the college level. And you can very specifically articulate in that application if you are a graduate of one of the pipeline programs. Again, then trying to really connect those dots. But really, it comes from collaborative discussion, bringing all of those stakeholders together and really kind of building seamless ways of connection. To what extent can we, let me give you an example of something that has come up recently in terms of an innovative idea with regard to nursing. So one of our faculty at Seminole Merit University really understands the problem with the high school to nursing, right, up the pipeline disconnect. And she has proposed a 6-year nursing program where the actual nursing program starts within the junior year of high school, right? In the sense that the interventions with regard to nursing mentoring, some of the theory classes that are taught by the school are actually taught at the high school level. And there's some dual enrollment possibilities that provide academic credit that meet some of the prerequisites to get into nursing programs. Now that's really thinking outside the box. It's really thinking outside the box. But when you're expecting young people to kind of stick through that 6 to 8 year transition up into medicine and nursing, you have to build that overlap. Because inevitably young people are going to get lost through all of that. And so, it's, like I said, it's everything from innovative, outside the box type of programming, to articulation agreements, to overlap in mentoring and support, right? To really thinking, kind of reframe what it means to be in a nursing track or a medicine track, because it really is simply just 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, and then 4 years of medical school. Or are we talking now kind of a 12-year pipeline, kind of along the medicine or healthcare arena? None of us have really quite figured it out yet. We're really still trying. There's a lot of thoughts and innovation around it. There's some great places like Coachella Valley, I think, that are doing some great work in terms of that innovation. But we're still working on that. Can I address something quickly about the mentoring piece though? We're throwing mentoring out a lot, right? And there's this kind of sense that we're all in agreement what mentoring means. And I don't think that that's the case by any stretch. And I think that is often the reluctance for healthcare providers, particularly physicians, to say, no, I really don't have the time for this because it just doesn't fit within my busy schedule, because they have a notion of what that means. And the truth is that there are very different elements to what mentoring means. There's the structural barriers we have to deal with, but most profoundly, particularly for many of our kids of color, it's the emotional barriers, which are some of the most destructive for young people. So yes, there are access issues. Can you get clinical experience, which is important for medical school? That's an issue of privilege. We don't always have that privilege. I certainly didn't grow up asking my mom if I can shadow her at the hospital or my friend, you know? No, I had to work. And so that notion of getting that kind of exposure was not within my frame of reality, number one. So if a mentor can certainly provide that level of access and exposure, that is important, but that is not where it stops. Because the challenge I have found in young people, and particularly young people of color, is they have a very difficult time articulating their value, right? It is extraordinary how many times I've had high school students and college students struggle with an essay on leadership and how they exemplify that. Because their frame of reference is, well, I never had time to be president, I never really could do after school sports, and I really couldn't do clubs because I was working 3 jobs and taking care of my 5 siblings while my mom and dad worked. Okay? And that piece of paper is blank, even though they've gone through it all. And they don't articulate all of that as leadership because they come from often such a deficit-based model. How do we refer to our kids? At risk, disadvantaged, right? Minority, marginalized. The messaging we internalize as Latinos sometimes and as folks of color go deep, not to mention kind of the biases we receive and the microaggressions we receive going up this pipeline. It is powerful. So one of the deepest work and most powerful work in terms of mentoring has to be to train our young people going up the pipeline to articulate for others and for themselves the value my lived experience brings to this profession. Right? This is why you need me. Because I am resourceful, I'm innovative, I can problem solve, right? You need me to multitask, I got that, because I've been doing it my whole life. And that's what the profession needs. Not only do I have a sense of what the community needs are and the challenges are and there are disparities, but I know how to resolve them. Because I've lived them, and I've worked it. And so we have found a huge transformative change when we have focused on allowing you to articulate their value and to articulate how their lived journey and lived experiences create value to the profession. And my last thing, I'll keep on going, I'm sorry. If you look at the global health workforce, so we do a lot of work in global health pathways. The global health sector, terrible diversity. Terrible diversity. And they are struggling even more so than we are in medicine on how to diversify that. You look at the competencies that the USAID and other organizations have determined makes the ideal global health worker. What are they? Communication, innovation, resourcefulness, all the things that exemplify the young people I work with because they do it on a daily basis. Right? So we're telling the global health workforce, this is the workforce you want to work with because they already got the skill set. You don't have to teach them this. And that's what we need to do in terms of our medical schools. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a couple comments, and I know there's some questions. I think there's some ingredients in these programs, both FACES and PRIME and some of the work that UC Davis is doing around diversity that does need to be scaled. And it does need to be sort of more of the norm than the exception. And I think that too often we get pigeonholed into having, oh, well, that's the PRIME program, and it's this big, and that's because there's a limited supply, right? There's not enough demand for it, but that's not necessarily true. California is the #1 exporter of pre-meds, and I would say if I can get my hands on the data, I would say that the majority of our Latinos are actually leaving the state. Okay, and I get to meet them. I was at UIC. They have a Hispanic Center of Excellence, where almost 50% of their class is minority. The majority are Latinos. And they graduate and end up in their residency programs. Chicago has a robust set of residency programs where the chairs, the faculty look like the population coming in. So you're going to want to be in these systems because you know you're going to be successful. You're going to be the next chair. You see that path every day. So there are best practices across the country. There's best practice here in California. How do we scale those up with the support of the universities, foundations, LPOC? This is a prime interest of us and why we're so dedicated to this, because we see this every day. So I think there's two things. I think there's the opportunities to scale up, and then the other is to link them all up. And we haven't made serious investments in technology. When we first started Alliance and Mentorship, I think there's a couple of founders here, a few maybe. If you guys could stand up. Alliance and Mentorship. Don't be afraid. All right. In 2012, we started with $1,000 each. We, I think, raised about $8,000. There's several other people who aren't here today, but here in spirit. And we decided to invest on a website, a community, a mentoring community. And people said, well, what's this website? Oh, it should be this, it should be that, or it's not good enough, this and that. We got about 2,700 people to sign up in the last few years. We're actually launching our app. We're going to give you guys a little preview in a few. But with that money that we invested, those few $1,000s, we then competed for a national innovations grant from Voto Latino, not even a health agency. And they gave us the seed money to launch this app. Through this app, and we already have people from New York, from Chicago, from DC, from all over the country telling us they want to come back to California because they're our own pre-med students that have left. And they want a spot in residency. So there's a demand argument here for us to also get it together in California. Hopefully we don't leave all these other states without doctors. But there are so many of us who are leaving, and it doesn't have to be that way. So there's an opportunity for linkage, and it's got to be through technology. Through Alliance and Mentorship, we don't provide direct mentoring services as much as we do link people with programs like FACES to make sure they know about programs like Prime. The majority of people don't even know anything. You ask them, for example, just to give you one, what is Ultimate? I don't know. Where is Ultimate? I don't know. It's the largest FQHC in the whole country. Primarily serves all Latino patients. Why don't enough of us know about it? Right? Again, everyone is working in these silos and no one knows about each other's program. And so there is, again, no visualization of what the next step's going to be. So through this technology, having an app where you can go on it anytime from anywhere, any place, and be able to share the resources. You may not have the time. Maybe you can make an investment, or if you don't have the time to actually come to an event, you may promote an event and say, hey, I can't mentor you as much as you should go to the LPOC Symposium. We should have another 100 people here, right? We're in LA. I mean, for crying out loud. So we have to continue to invest in technology to be able to get the word out of what's really happening and the potential people have to be successful.
So one thing, I'll share something with the students. So I used to live in Arlington Park for about 7 years by the high school. So awesome that you connected with a pediatrician, because I know firsthand how it is. My wife's from Arlington Park. I think that connected is, I don't got much to add, because I think, like Talamantes put it on, I think we got to be innovative and look at the technology. I think, otherwise it's just too hard, and, we won't be able to really keep up with, all the different programs, especially at the, at the prime level, we're also looking forward to the residency, because I think at the residency, a lot of the residencies, the programs at the academic medical centers at least are just dismal in diversity. I think the medical schools, if you think the medical school enrollment is bad, you should see the numbers for residencies at the academic medical centers. I mean, those are, and you know, we always forget about those, but you know, that's some of the things that at the prime we're also looking to even connect it further to residency, and sort of how do we continue, you know, that ladder from all the way to residency.
I'll just, as a program director for the residency program, Latinos aren't the only ones that don't pass step 1 or 2 or whatever. And I'll tell you that I get emails from other program directors saying, hey, so-and-so didn't pass, can you, you know, take another look at their application? And we're happy to. But they tend to be non-Latinos, the ones that we're getting requests for. So I would say, again, the fact that no one's advocating for us when we don't pass a silly test, when we have so much potential, is again, that we don't have effective mentors. Right? So if you want to think about mentoring, these are people who are going on saying, hey, Efrain, you need to reconsider and look at this application, please. And what did we decide as a group for this candidate who's actually, again, non-minority, non-Latino? We're going to bring him to interview. We want to meet him because every single comment was off the charts. But somehow he got lost in the shuffle. I mean, there's thousands of applications. So again, mentoring could be more than just, you know, a letter of rec. It could be calling people, and you have people in this room who are in different places to be advocates for you. So,
Great. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to. Do you think it's counterproductive or productive strategically to keep us in these silos with Latinos over here, African Americans over here, Asians over there? How can we come together? We all the same issue. You can have this be an all black doctor panel here. Exactly same issue. And I also, I have like right now, I have about 36 students from UCLA, USC, and Irvine, African American students now who are begging for mentorship. We're gonna have a big kickoff. But they're gonna get a big culture shock when I tell them, hey, most of your patients are gonna be Hispanic when you get out of your world. So these kids need to understand the Latino culture. These African American kids, and the same way. You know, what's the difference now between a Latino doctor seeing predominantly Latino patients and a black physician like I did for the last 40 years, predominantly Latino patients. My patients were Latino. So it's very mixed, and so I'm here to really try to beg us, how can we come together? I'm with LACMA, I'm with the National Medical Association, I belong to both of them, and we're trying to get together some kind of mentorship strategy. And I need you guys to come together because it's not black and brown anymore. It's us, and I gotta emphasize that. This
yeah, I would say that a lot of the reason that we get siloed that way is actually it's the academic medical center, the health system, the academic medical centers, because they make us all feel like we're competing for the same resource, and we do. You know, asking people for $5,000, I mean, and they say no. You ain't organized enough. You ain't got it together enough. You know, you need to put out this. You need to do that. And I mean, there's a lot of that. So yeah, there's a huge case for us to unite and say, you know what? We don't just want 5,000. We want 5 million. To address this issue, right? So that's the case. The other thing I would say is that if you can imagine a diversity dashboard where every health system, medical school is held accountable to something, right? Just like they want to hold us accountable for step 1, step 2, step whatever, we need to hold them accountable to make sure that their schools are keeping up with diversity. And if they're not, there's got to be consequences. Right, and so a lot of this, you know, I can go out on a limb and tell you right now that the majority of medical students that get into med school can take step 1 and 2 without taking 1 day of class and pass that damn thing. Medical schools are lazy. They don't teach you anything new. Now, yes, as a Latino, you're coming in, this is the first time you ever really had a chance to learn medicine, right? And then they expect us to pass when every subpar elementary, high school education, and even struggling through undergrad, that's supposed to get us all the way to level the playing field, and then we're judged by these residency programs. No. So medical schools need to do more for us. And if they don't invest in good mentorship, I mean, if Gerardo wasn't my mentor, I would tell you, I would not be where I'm at. I wouldn't be in academics. I wouldn't be working with Sergio today. So a lot of what we need is holding these systems accountable. And students are more powerful. I always tell my medical students I mentor, you're more powerful to the medical schools than we are, because they're just saying, well, you guys are just trying to vie for more resources. Yeah, of course you want a job in an FTE and all these things. Yeah, and we do, because we need them. But medical students, you can demand, you're paying tuition, right? Get 10 medical students together. How much money does that equate to a medical school? $1 million, right? Probably more, right? Now get 20, 30, 40, hundreds. Now you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars on the line if medical schools don't respond. That's what you're talking about. How do we come together and bring that many people to hold these systems accountable?
So, comment? So, as a practicing physician for 31 years, I think that one of the studies that has never been done by the medical school is looking at the benefit of the students that came under affirmative action, you know, and basically what we have given back to the community, and that's not just in so many ways. I have won, I mean, my organization, which right now where I work is, we have been Clinical Excellence Award for the last 2 years. I worked in Minnesota for 8 years, Clinical Excellence Award, solo practitioner. But I think that this is really lacking, is getting some feedback. It's not like because you had a 7.8 or 4.0 that there's been a difference in what we bring back, but it's just, it's something that they don't, doesn't look at to claim us as a success that we are. I think that's a really important thing for the medical schools, and for us to sort of bring back to them is that we haven't been failures for them, we've been successes. And these successes we're getting beyond now. We are going into the retirement age, and what are they going to do now? So I don't know how we can sort of bring that to the forefront, but I think it's really important. The more I think about it all the time, I think, you know, no one's ever asked me in terms of what have you accomplished?
You know, there's this notion that we're often celebrated, but we're not valued, right? And so there's organizations are quick to celebrate their diversity numbers and their efforts, but when it comes down to true value in terms of organizational structure, it kind of falls flat. And part of that comes from, I believe, to an extent that there has not been a lot of diligence in really understanding the value of diversity and what it brings to a profession and to an organization. Now, there's some extraordinary businesses that have shown the financial impact of diversity, how it improves organizational structures, how it brings in innovative thinking to enhance strategy and so forth. I don't know to what extent those arguments, which have happened in the business sector, have actually extended into the academic arena. Right? We're still kind of playing the same old song over and over and over again. Now, I'm all about organizational accountability. There's no doubt about that. The problem is